Hello?
Hello, Jughead. This is Archie. Come over right away. It's a matter of life or death.
Oh, relax, Archie.
Attention, all true believers. Marvel Comics is on the air.
A friend of the unfortunate, enemy of criminals. In reality, Dan Garrett, a rookie patrolman, loved by everyone but suspected by none of being the Blue Beetle.
Boys and girls, your attention, please. Presenting a new exciting radio program featuring the thrilling adventures of an amazing and incredible personality. Faster than an airplane, more powerful than a locomotive, impervious to bullets.
Up in the sky, look!
It's a bird, it's a plane, it's Superman!
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up, the internet? It's producer Kyle. How's it going? Tonight's show, I think, is going to be somewhat interesting in that it comes from a weird place that's happening in the industry right at the moment. The topic is cringy crowdfunding. And I want to start off by saying everyone who has ever crowdfunded a project has done something cringy, whether they intended to or not. Right? Sometimes people make mistakes. Sometimes people do things that they don't think are going to be cringy. Sometimes people are people. Right? So we're going to talk about that. And we have a guest with us tonight who has done an amount of money on Kickstarter that is impressive. 6 figures. And if you're one of those that round up, which I know he is, closer to 7 figures. I'm kidding. But if you round up based on math. Anyway, we are going to bring them on to talk about the creator perspective on this. But I want to tell a story. About 18 months ago, I sat down to do my budget because your boy was coming up broke at the end of every month. And I'm going, I make a good living. I'm smart with my money. Where's it all going? And as it turned out, on the average month, I was spending about a third of my take-home pay on crowdfunding, on Kickstarters. I was backing projects and I was never opening the box because I was spending too much money. So it turns into this question of, okay, well, how do you correct that behavior in me? And I had to treat it as though it was an addiction, as though it was alcohol or drugs or something else. And I had to quit cold turkey. And so I haven't backed a crowdfunding project in 18 months. And now that I'm coming back to crowdfunding and I'm going to start backing projects again, well, how do I keep this straight? How do I keep everything on the up and up? How do I know which projects to back? And so we're going to talk a little bit about this. Jay and I are going to tell a couple of stories, and then we're going to bring on our guest, and we're going to dig into this. So if you do a lot of crowdfunding, if you do a lot of backing of crowdfunding, if you just want to spend money more responsibly, maybe find a different hobby. But in the meantime, you should do it the smart way. Or whatever. What's up, everybody? Welcome in. K-Pop, TJ James, Hope, some guy named Dirk, Eddie, Leonard. Say hi when you get here, everybody. I forgot to start the Instagram.
So did I. I also forgot to share. So, listening to you, I'm like enthralled with what you're saying. And I was like, oh, I should maybe share this out.
Right. I started the Instagram, by the way.
Okay.
So, what night was that we talked about it, Jay?
Aggressively
relaxing. You should talk to my business partner. Anyway, what night was that we talked about this? Was this last Wednesday after the show?
I believe so.
Yeah. There is a crowdfund project that's going on right now that in the comic professional circles that I travel in is getting a lot of talk. And it's an interesting thing because there are big name creators that are coming out in support of this project, and there are big name creators coming out saying that this project is cringe.
Yes, it's a weird. This
Right.
person's either garbage or they're a ray of sunshine.
Right.
There's like no in between there.
Right. And the premise of the project is that this person followed around a famous creator who the last years of their life was not sunshine and rainbows. And this person was in their inner circle, and this documentary project is sort of this project is sort of chronicling that, but they're not necessarily basically some people feel like they're taking advantage of a bad situation because they didn't do anything to stop this when it was happening, or maybe they tried and were unsuccessful, and other people feel like they're taking advantage of this situation now later to make money. And the project has a high funding ratio, has a high funding floor. Like, they need to raise a lot of money, and they're doing it in a way that doesn't make a lot of sense to a lot of people. But people who know, I'm trying not to name names, and it's getting freaking hard.
Yeah.
But people who know the project and know the person putting out the project are saying, hey, this person tried and was kind of restricted, and this person has good intentions, even if they're doing it in a way that you might not agree with. So that kind of started the project. But then Jay and I got to talking about other projects that we have backed in the past that have been cringy. And so, Jay, tell the story that you just told me before we went on the air.
So I want to preface this by saying that, it's kind of a flex, I guess, depending on how you look at it. I have a lot of friends in the creator industry. I love backing their stuff. I really do. There was a project we backed a couple years ago now. I think it was about 2 years ago. And we had gotten an update that, it was funded, everything was good. And me being friends with creatives, I'm a very patient person. I understand this isn't just, well, campaign's done, a week later you get your comic. I know there's a little bit of a wait to get things done. The only thing that I've ever asked for is communication. I don't care if your book's going to be 5 years late, as long as you're constantly updating and talking to us, Well, unfortunately for this project, I almost forgot that I had backed it. And for some reason, something reminded me of it. And I think back in October, November of last year, I went to look it up. The only update was the initial from 2023 that it was funded. There was nothing on there. So when Kyle asked me about this, I happened to go back and check on it just to see. And sure enough, in January, another update popped up saying that there was some kind of tie-up with licenses and stuff like that, that the book is going to be, now here's the thing that got me. The book is going to be worked on to get it completed. That's the part that got me. Again, I'm a super patient person. I'm a very forgiving person. But the book, just now we're going to be able to work on it, kind of has me a little, am I ever really going to get the book? Is
right. You're miffed.
Yeah.
Right. There are stories upon stories of people backing projects that never get fulfilled. There is a very famous artist who I hate to bash this person multiple weeks in a row, but hey, they can't draw feet, so they deserve it. Who we've now been waiting several years for a project to come out. There's another very well-known artist who I'm friends with who, people have been waiting a long time, that this artist only now is able to talk about the fact that their former life partner stole the money from the crowdfunding. And so they've been having to work to pay off the project and pay back the project, to get it out. But if the money's stolen, it's gone. So there are a lot of things that happen in these processes, right? That cause problems. And I told this person I'd bring him on in like 5 minutes, and it's been like 10. So I don't want to have this be a right kind of show, which might be fun, but I don't want to do that. What I instead want to do is talk about why we run into these problems, what we can do to fix them, how we can learn from this, and that kind of stuff. So, ladies and gentlemen, our guest for this evening couldn't keep his mouth shut and stay out of the chat, so you already spoiled it. Which, if you've known them very long at all, pretty common for them, actually. Except when they really need to keep a secret and make my hair turn gray. But they have done over $500,000 on Kickstarter. They've run, I can't count how many successful campaigns. They have backed, they just told me, over 400 campaigns on Kickstarter. So, ladies and gentlemen, the hairdo himself, Dirk Manning.
To be fair, I could have just been an active participant in the chat.
You could have, but you weren't.
You had a great group of people here. I couldn't resist. I'd say hello. That's right. The homies are there. Right. Friends are here, and this is an amazing topic. And
what's interesting is you're preparing a Kickstarter.
Literally, like, I'm taking time away from preparing the Kickstarter for rsvp-esp.com to chat with you guys about Kickstarter. So the irony is not lost on me.
And before we get into this, we're going to make an announcement. April 7th. April the this many. 7th.
Yes.
At 5 in the PM.
EST.
Right here on this channel. That guy and his collaborator on rsvp-esp.com will be joining us for Talking Shop.
Nice.
Yeah, me and Josh Mallerman. This might be, that will probably be one of his first ever interviews about like live interviews about the making of the comic. So we're both super excited.
Hey, real quick, because I see Nope is in the chat. Nope actually bought Homestead from Wonderland Comics the other day.
Oh, right on. Thank you so much.
And we're working on a show with Homestead artist Les Garner very, very soon. So shout out to
Les, and happy birthday, Les.
Happy birthday, Les.
Les's birthday is today. The Appalachian Iron Man, someone who I'll be doing a Kickstarter with again, our follow-up to Homestead later this year. So yeah, I love Kickstarter, and I'm happy to come on and get to chop it up with you guys about Kickstarter and positive practices and things like that.
Right. So we kind of led off with some stories, some horror stories from our Kickstarter experiences, but I think understanding why projects go the way they go is important to understanding why sometimes we get disappointed. So as someone who has only briefly seen the back end of Kickstarter, can you kind of explain to the audience, Dirk, like, what's it like putting a project together for a crowdfunding project? What's it like putting the whole thing together? And then, can you go into kind of why people make the decisions they make?
Kickstarters are a lot of work, whether you're using the Kickstarter or some other sort of crowdfunding platform, you have to build a campaign and things like that. And one of the things that, and again, like you said, just full transparency about Kickstarter. I've backed over 400 campaigns. I've done over $500,000 gross on Kickstarter. So I'm pretty familiar with the Kickstarter platform as well as crowdfunding as a whole. First and foremost, you have to build the whole campaign page, right? I mean, I think that's something that people take for granted, is like the page just doesn't magically populate. You have to build the whole page and things like that. But before you get to that point, whenever people ask me about like why crowdfunding and how crowdfunding, I tell people, in order to crowdfund, the very first step is you have to have a crowd. And people kind of laugh and think I'm being a smart aleck, and I'm not. I'm saying, no, I'm not. I mean, you actually have to have people that know what you do. And then on top of that, you have to be able to activate your crowd to get them to support, and Jay and Kyle, both of you kind of talked about this, support what you're doing in advance of the immediate gratification that a lot of us are accustomed to these days, right? When you back a Kickstarter, you are saying, I'm going to invest in helping to make this happen, knowing I'm not going to get the thing for a little while. And that is a very different experience than offered to us on things like Amazon Prime and things like that, you know, where you click it and then, you know, a drone drops it off on your back porch or what have you. So the other thing to consider about Kickstarter, and when you're going into making this, is you have to put yourself in a place where you are willing to be extremely vulnerable, because every single thing you do from the moment you hit launch on that Kickstarter, and I'm using Kickstarter as a generic term for crowdfunding in general, but once you launch it, it's wide open. And I think that's something a lot of people, whether they be backers or whether they be creators, don't think about. It's wide open. So let's take rsvpesp.com, right? That's the new Kickstarter launching on April 1st. And I am plugging it because, hey, why wouldn't I? But
that's the point, man. We got a whole tab on here that says plugs.
Just saying, right? Mm-hmm. Once we take this campaign live, if we get 100 backers in an hour, or we get one backer in an hour, everybody's going to see it. And everyone is going to see the trajectory of this campaign. Like, say if it's a 30-day campaign, which is average for most crowdfunding, everyone's going to see what you're doing on that campaign for 30 days straight, 24/7. And I encourage you, as the host of the show, I encourage those of you who are creators watching this now or later, I encourage those of you who are readers and just like to back these Kickstarters, imagine that Truman Show-like aspect of this, where you are under a spotlight, and what you're doing is under a spotlight, wide open for the world to see, for 30 days. It takes a lot of bravery to do a Kickstarter. It takes a lot of tenacity, and you will never work harder in your life as a comic creator, I'm convinced, than running a Kickstarter. And friends who have coached up on this, you know, like Joshua Ross, you know, Austin McKinley, other people who I've worked with on Kickstarter, I tell them, I say, you are never going to work harder in your whole life than you work on a Kickstarter. Like, oh no, blah, blah. I said, trust me. And then they run their first one, and they're like, good God. Because just the stress of trying to make sure people see it and promoting it without being annoying and making sure it gets out there for people and things like that. So what goes into this? It's this, man. It's just bearing your soul wide open and putting something out there and saying, okay, here we go. And then trying to balance talking about it in a way that you're not knowing your friends without also recognizing the oppressive nature of social media and the algorithms and things like that as well. Along with like building the whole campaign, doing interviews, talking about it, actually doing the production on the book if the production on the book's not done yet, and overseeing that. For starters.
Yeah, Facebook sometimes doesn't feel like it's a real big fan of Kickstarters, because if you go to my page, I look like a spam page because it's mainly EXP shows and Kickstarter. And I've learned now to take the picture and put the link that you shouldn't even put link in your description there. You put the actual link in the comments.
Right.
But,
and that helps a little bit. So, but yeah, I mean, different algorithms on different social media platforms treat external links in different ways. Right. So it's one of those things you got to think about. Yeah. I mean, and it's tough, back when social media was first starting, it was a lot easier to get traction and share crowdfunding campaigns and things like that. We're in a different world now, right? Years ago, someone who I know, another creator, he reached out to me and he goes, "Oh, hey, how come you didn't tell me you had a Kickstarter running?" And I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" I'm like, I have been posting about this Kickstarter like twice a day, probably for 30 days. And he told me something that I there's a brain tattoo, right? Never forget. He said, "You got to remember about social media." He goes, "Posting on social media is like throwing red paint in the ocean. For 5 minutes, everyone sees it. In 10 minutes, it's like it was never there." I was like, wow. And that was before the algorithm arguably got as oppressive as it has now. So I don't know if that directly answered your question or not, Kyle.
Nope.
But
I
had to build a framework.
Right. Yeah.
What
and
this
that's good.
entails.
No, that was super important. That wasn't something I really thought about, right? Like, it's kind of understanding what goes into the before a Kickstarter. But when you're putting one together, like,
yes, sir.
Every project, it seems like there are certain things that definitely happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to see variant covers, or you're going to see exclusive covers. You're going to see prints or art, or, for lack of a better term, tchotchkes, right?
Sure.
Like, you're a big fan of doing enamel pins,
right,
on your projects. I remember when you did candles, votive candles.
Yeah.
Like,
they were big candles.
Right, big candles. Like, I remember lugging those around to Comic-Con, helping you one time. I'm like, this is dumb. Anyway, but when you're putting your project together and you're thinking about, okay, these are what my tiers are going to be.
Right.
These are what my stretch goals are going to be. These are what my rewards are going to be. How do you make those decisions ahead of time?
You want to, it's much like when you do anything creative. A lot of creatives will tell you they put forth in the world what they want to see. I ask myself first and foremost, as someone who loves books, what do I want to see? Right? What do I want? I love books. You can see just a sample of my office here. I'm surrounded by books, right? Books are my happy place. So first and foremost, I ask myself, what would excite me to buy this, and what would excite me to pre-order it? Ship more plushies. We'll get to that in a little bit, right? So, as a creator, first and foremost, I said, well, what would be cool? And and people that are back Kickstarters me know I love doing things like leather bound and gilded pages and stuff like man, you put a slipcase on a book, or you do like a deluxe hardcover edition of a book, leather bound edition of a book. I'm probably gonna buy it. I'll have like 4 copies of the 4 versions of the same book if you start doing leather bounds and stuff like that. So that's a big part of it. In regards to like your other stretch goals and things like that, I try to find things that are of high value to the people that would be interested in this particular product. Ship mentioned a minute ago, like the plushies. When Scoot McMahon and I did Cthulhu Jr., we did Cthulhu Jr. plushies. Would I do plushies on a book like Homestead? I mean, it's a bad example because it's a werewolf book, right? But something like Love Stories to Die For, would we do plushies? Probably not, right? Or the Desk Dirk figures, right? When we did Right or Wrong. What stuff that's fun, but also something that I can, and I'm just going to be real about it, that I can charge a fair price for, that I won't lose money in shipping these things out. Right. So really you want to do like high value that you can offer at a reasonable cost. You know, the desk dirks that we did for the 20th, by 20th anniversary as a published writer were a lot of fun, but man, they're tricky to ship, which is why I don't offer them very often, because they're in a little box, right? They're like a little mini Funko style box, and you don't want them to get banged up and things like that. So things like that. So you want to look at what's high value, but what's fun. That's from the side as a fan. But conversely, when you're running a Kickstarter, you also have to consider as a professional, like I wrestled with starting crowdfunding for a long time, believe it or not, before I started, because I didn't want to be in a situation where I was alienating comic shops. And eventually I came to the point, and I'm going to give myself my flowers here. I was one of the OGs that started doing it this way, is that I would offer, right, a standard trade paperback, but I would also offer like a deluxe hardcover version of a book, maybe with a variant cover too, or something like that, right? Because I knew coming up, oh, what up, Dick? I knew for a fact that retailers were not going to be interested in buying a higher end hardcover edition of a graphic novel from an independent horror comic writer that's never done stuff for Marvel or DC of note. But people that like my stuff, my people, whether that be 100 people, 300 people, whatever, that know my stuff, they want the limited edition hardcover. And you know what? I'm only going to print enough so the people that back the Kickstarter get it. Then I would offer a standard trade paperback, whether I was with Devil's Due or later moving to Source Point Press, where I've made a home since, offering through the direct market a standard edition of the book, which is at a lower price point, which is more what stores are accustomed to getting. But I didn't, and then on top of that, I would always offer a retailer pledge level. You got people like, well, shout out Jen King, right? You know, a perfect example of this. Jen sometimes gets her own pledge level, right? Because she goes in so deep. But like saying, hey, if you're a store, I will have a retailer pledge where you can still get the books directly from me wholesale. And you can get some of the cool Kickstarter stuff with all the rewards that come with the Kickstarter version. And you can even get a couple standard ones. That way you have the opportunity too, where I'm not cutting your legs out from under you on this. Because I would run into that problem. Then people would say, well, gee, Dirk, if you're running a Kickstarter, you're already selling to all your fans. Why am I going to order your book? Well, here's a retailer pledge level. Jump in on it, wholesale.
Right.
You know?
Well,
so that's all stuff that kind of goes into the swirling goulash of running a Kickstarter.
I can speak to that retailer level. When the first volume of Hope came out, I backed it at the retailer level.
Right.
And I had the hardcovers, the exclusive hardcovers available in my shop for a long time. Mm-hmm. Not because they weren't selling, but because I kept buying more from this schmuck. But when people would come in who had never heard of Dirk, who were looking for a certain type of book that isn't offered by Marvel or DC or Dark Horse or Image or one of those people, I go, I got you over here.
Right.
The same reason that like a book like, and I was talking to another Kickstarter creator who I was hoping to have on the show who's not able to come on tonight about this earlier. A book like Jiu-Jitsu Jesus.
Yeah.
That
Back frag.
Yeah.
My guy.
That most shops couldn't sell. I was selling left, right, and center because people came to my shop looking for the indie Kickstarter crowdfunded underground kind of book.
Right.
And so having that retailer level was super important and was a super good choice to make. Are there limitations to what you can offer in terms of pledge levels and rewards and things? Like, and I'm talking about like guardrails, not necessarily are there limitations in terms of what you can get made or what you can afford or that kind of stuff, but are there guardrails?
Yeah, I mean, again, you want to be reasonable. You want to be careful. You know, when I do the Kickstarter exclusive hardcover editions of the books, for example, I make sure to do those print to order because printing hardcovers does cost more money. And then you put the gold, a lot of times I put gilded pages in there that cost more money. And then I'm adding extra stuff to it, prints or whatever crazy stuff we're coming up with, right? That all costs more money. So you want to be careful because the unit price of the book does not change once you set it on the Kickstarter. So, for example, we'll talk about RSVP-ESP.com. That's the new Kickstarter launching on April 1st. We haven't talked about this anywhere yet. You're gonna get a pre-exclusive. I'm doing something on this campaign with Josh Mellerman and Joshua Ross I've never done for one of my Kickstarter exclusive books before. We are starting with the book that you can get, the standard trade paperback edition, right? The basic book. This is the book that eventually will be available everywhere, comic shops, whatever, retailers can jump in on this. But if you're a big fan of Josh Malman, you're a big fan of myself, you're a big fan of Joshua Ross, we're offering a hardcover edition of the book that's going to have an embedded lenticular cover. It's like one of those covers, like you go like this and it's two different images, right? That drives up the price of the book. So we have to set a price point knowing that we can cover that, but also including every stretch goal we unlock. Those are free. So we have to bake all of that in as we go as well. So you really want to honor those guardrails about like not going too crazy. Like what I love to offer, I think fancy, thank you. So we have to, like, I've been talking to Josh Mellerman about this, about what we can offer that we are not going to like be paying people to get this book because we've driven up our production costs so much. Slipcases are a perfect example. I love slipcases. Everybody, a lot of people I know love slipcases. Man, they're heavy. And they get dinged up really easy. Dust jackets, no way. No way. I don't care how well Whalebacker will pack that thing up. Dust jackets get dinged up too easy. So those are the guardrails you kind of want to think about when you're doing this stuff, about what is a high value, really cool, but also is not going to get jammed up in shipping and is also not going to cost so much money that you go underwater producing it versus the price you're setting that's fair for people to jump in on it.
Sure. Chuck Pino should check his Facebook messages, but he's over on Instagram and wants to know, as a creator, is there a reward, pins, prints, etc. type that is your personal favorite kind of reward?
I love doing the Kickstarter exclusive hardcover and tricking out the hardcovers as much as we can. Right. Yeah. They're a perfect example. Look at that. See that? It's got like the gold belt on it and stuff like that. And we did like the variant art. I love doing stuff that makes the book itself more special is my favorite. But that aside, I've also really gotten to be a fan of doing like the making of books, right? Yeah, like the Arn Anderson's got the gold gilded pages. Yeah, thank you, Jay. Another perfect example. I love making the book. I like the thing, right? I want to put my hands on the thing. I like the fancy edition of the book. This is really cool, right? Really cool. It's nice, great book, awesome. But man, knowing that I got the Kickstarter exclusive hardcover with the red gilded pages, the Tales of Mr. E Bible. There, look at that monster, right?
God, that thing was a nightmare to haul around to help you out.
Right, it's so heavy, but so good. That aside, thank you, Jay. You're like the perfect band out tonight. Mm-hmm. But that aside, I've really started to enjoy doing like making of books. Right. When we can like share behind the scenes sketches and script samples and things like that. And also make those like something that you can add in, like a little 8-page ash can or something like that, like a making of. I like doing stuff like that as well. I like doing the signed book plates as well. I like doing those a lot because it gives, I like that as a fan. I like that as a creator because it gives us one more personal connection. People know when they get that book, and if they open it up and there's like a signed book plate in there, they know for a fact that my hand, my pen touched that. The artists did. Sometimes we do little like custom sketches on them and stuff too. So that's stuff that makes it more that personal connection. The book is a personal version that only you get. Those books that Jay's holding up, you can't get those in the direct market unless a retailer ordered them and has them stashed away somewhere.
Right.
So things that make it personal.
Right. So And I think we're going to be joined here in a moment by frequent editor of indie and crowdfunded projects, Chuck Pino.
Oh, right on.
But before Chuck gets here, do you have a story of something that you had planned to do in a crowdfunding campaign that in the middle of the crowdfunding campaign went awry and you had to either pivot or wound up being more work than you thought it would be? And can you give some example of things that maybe you've seen over the years that would be examples of that? One, again, from my conversation earlier, is person did a project and then tariffs kicked in and they're printing in China.
Right.
So now the book is 25% higher than it was when
your
they
profit margin. So people understand your profit margin on any given book on a Kickstarter campaign is 20%. I mean, that's the real numbers, folks. On average, if they did a $100,000 campaign, chances are your profit margin all in is only 20% of that.
All right, real quick,
it's 20%.
Before we dive deeper, I'm going to bring the man, the myth, the trivia master, Chuck Pino.
There's the man. What's going on, Chuck? How are you, buddy?
Doing good, homie. How you doing? Good to see you guys. What's up, Jay? Kyle, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So this is what we're discussing. We've talked about kind of the choices creators make and sort of the guardrails and why kind of crowdfunding on some level, a lot of them are similar. But now we're talking about why do sometimes the best laid plans go awry, right? What are some things that you've seen that have thrown projects off course or that would cause, things that maybe you've experienced in your career that didn't work out the way you thought they might? And I have one from my own life, so we'll talk about that in a minute.
The biggest one I've dealt with is shipping and production delays. When we did the Nightmare World Bible, we were printing overseas. It was this big, complicated book. It was like it was one of the first big Kickstarters I did. It was 4 volumes all put together in a hardcover, the gold gilded pages, a bonus book, a slipcase, all the leather bound, you name it, all this stuff. So that in of itself, getting all the specs on that was a lot more work than I anticipated. But then one of the things printing overseas is people talk about like the slow boat from China. That's really a thing. These big cargo ships, which I think now that ever since 2020 and COVID and the supply chain and stuff, we know what the slow boat from China is, like these giant cargo boats with these big vats. And finally, Nightmare World is getting ready to leave the printer. Hurricanes showed up. And at this point, I know my hair looks like plastic and stuff like that, but I was like ready to pull it out, just like snap this Lego hair off my head. Like, are you kidding me? Now, to Jay's point at the beginning, I would communicate regularly with backers. Here's what's going on. Here's what's going on. And then it's freaking hurricane. And the printer's like, we can send the boat out, or if we send the boat out, risk your luck. But then the problem is the boat wouldn't go out for another month after that because of the way they schedule these things. Like, oh my God. So I literally sent like the weather tracker link to everyone to show them. I'm not exaggerating. Literally, look, here's the printer on the map. Here's the hurricane. The boat does not want to go through the hurricane, right? So that's a big one. And the way to get around that, like Jay mentioned at the very beginning, is just transparency. Talk to people, communicate with them. They don't have to read the update if they don't want to. But if they ever go to look back, that you did tell them what's going on, and be honest with people about it. And be honest. Don't try to cover up, oh, my grandma died. Or just I mean, if the grandma died, God's sake, say that. But just I worked on a book where the creator had a very, very, very major personal crisis, and we had to punt production of the book for about 2 months. I told people, I said, look, this book was 75% done. But this last 25% is pretty crucial when he had this family crisis. So we had to push that back. So just be transparent with people. But there you go, Chuck. I was trying to give you time to get acclimated, Chuck. Sorry. Go ahead, buddy.
No. Chuck, you did great. And actually, I think you hit the nail on the head on the biggest one, especially kind of for that, the I don't know, I guess I want to say the more fresh-faced Kickstarter creators, but I think life. A lot of times it's just life, And so what I'll tell my clients is have as much of that project, especially when you're still new, have as much of that, if not all of it, done ahead of time. I had one guy come to me and go, so we had, I think they had like 6 or 8 pages done out of the 24-page floppy. And then they had an issue with the artist, and they had to drop the artist and get someone to do it all over again. So he's like, not only do we have to pay for new pages, like those pages that we've already done, but this guy that we got is more expensive. And I was like, so? And they're like, well, how do we get that money out of the backers? And I'm like, no. You started this. This is on you. This is one you take on the chin. That's why you do all the crap ahead of time, or as much of it as possible, so that okay, we're, this is the worst that can happen. If you already have the lines done and you're working on coloring, then there's a good chance you're going to be fine. Another colorist can usually slip in and mimic another style and whatnot. But pencils, not the same thing at all, man. Not the same thing at all. And if it is, it's often tracing. So you don't want that in your book. So yeah, have as much done as you possibly can.
Amen. And I'll tell you what, man, I want to follow up something you said too. I love the fact that you said how sometimes early creators, novice creators, will say, well, I got to go back to the backers for more money. It's like, no. No. Kickstarter is not a bank, right? This is not something you draw. Rather, what you're doing is you're giving people a chance to pre-order your book, and you have a contract with them. And I love what you said too, Joe, about having as much of it done as possible. A lot of creators will that I talk to will be like, well, yeah, but I don't have the money to do it, which is why I'm doing the Kickstarter. And it's like, well, if you're just getting started and it's going to take you 6 months or 9 months to deliver on this thing,
take the time.
Yeah. I'm going to be the guy in the room, and it's like, maybe you got to get a second job for a minute.
And I'll be the outside voice on that. I have no problem if you put front and center in a Kickstarter. I, am a elementary school teacher. I don't have, I'm doing this to fund making this book. Mm-hmm. I'm doing this so I can raise the money to pay the artists, right? I have no problem if you're front and center about that, right?
Yeah,
being super transparent about why you're raising money. One of the things with the cringy crowdfunder that we were talking about earlier, apparently some of that money is for potential legal fees. But nowhere in the crowdfund, because they know they're going to get sued trying to put this documentary out by the people who are made to look bad in this documentary. They've already been sued a couple of times. So part of the amount they're trying to raise is enough that way, if they get sued again, the documentary still comes out.
I respect it.
Right. But they didn't put it in the crowdfund. They didn't put it in the Kickstarter. I'm like, I shouldn't have to find this out from.
I'm very ferocious about only promoting the positive, but I will say, because this is a critique. Mm-hmm. I saw a Kickstarter from 2 very high-end creators, who, I own several things that both of them are involved in. And in the Kickstarter, they mentioned, well, part of the funds are going to allow us to pay my bills while I do this book. I get it, but it just came off really tone deaf, right? And no, don't say it that way, man. Come on, or woman, you're better. No, don't do that. And someone mentioned earlier in the comments how publishers shouldn't run Kickstarters. I think there's that perception too that, well, the publisher, you have all this money already. I'm gonna tell y'all a secret. They don't. Am I lying, Chuck? Am I lying?
No, actually, one of my favorite stories, Dirk, is Boom Studios when they did Berserker with Keanu Reeves. One of my favorite things was I checked it out, and I wasn't interested in the book. But as I'm sliding down, I see at the very bottom it's another ad for other Kickstarters coming. And right there is my buddy's book right there. And I'm like, dude, do you realize that like effectively Boom Studios has helped create an ad for your comic? Like that's ridiculous. We can't pay for that kind of advertising. So first off, that was amazing. But what a lot of people don't talk about with that particular Kickstarter is that when were done, they did such a great job that they then put, I think it was like $100 into a bunch of other comic books that were struggling and needed at that time. And so Boom Studio went and said, we did so good that we want to help out. And they helped out a bunch of the other struggling number one issues. And I was like, that's freaking beautiful. And sadly, I had a number 3 at the time, so I didn't get the 100. But I was so happy that they did that for the other creators. I was like, that's freaking awesome.
Money.
Yeah, no Keanu money. No. Where's my John Wick money? Whose dog do I have to kill for this $100?
Right.
Well, but at the same time, they did a lot of other stuff with the success of that crowdfunding, of that Kickstarter, right? That allowed them to do 100% returnability for local comic shops. So local comic shops could get the signed Keanu 1 in 1,000 and then send back 950 copies. And it didn't kill Boom Studios, and it let the local comic shops make a pretty nice penny. You know, it allowed them to do some things that would not have otherwise been doable. But we were talking about best laid plans going awry, and I wanted to share my story, and then we want to pivot to something you guys have already kind of been talking about. I was doing marketing for a Kickstarter for a ridiculously small publisher, and they had a backer tier where if you backed at a certain level, you got a plushie of the main character. And they order the plushies, and the plushies show up on time for the Kickstarter to go out, like on schedule. And we open the box, and they're the wrong color.
Oh.
Because the translation to the Chinese manufacturer was wrong. So what should have been a brown colored plushie was bright white, and what should have been a red bandana was black. And so now we have to go back to the manufacturer and get the translation fixed and get new plushies made so we can ship out the right plushies for the project. That's not something that the creator can plan for. That's not something that you can really do. And so what they did, what was super smart, is they sent everybody who had the plushie one of these misprints, because the company didn't want them back.
Yeah.
As we're sorry, here's this variant plushie.
Right.
You know, like, and they
for the Channel Albino plushie I want.
Right. No, but it's Drina, I have a box of them. Because I wound up getting paid in plushie for that work, like, because the delays cost so much that there was no money left to pay me for the marketing, so they just paid me in plushies, which is fine. I have gifts for every nephew and niece from now until the end of time, but it was one of those things. They were very transparent. They went on Kickstarter and they put up a picture. Hey, this is not how this is supposed to look. You didn't pay for this. We're going to send you one for free when we get the right ones, but there's going to be a delay.
Right.
So you guys have already kind of talked about it, but in terms of creator best practices, we all know there are pitfalls, right? There are cost overruns. There are things you can't plan for. But when you're planning your project, when you're executing your project, what are some of the things you can do to avoid some of the easy ones that people seem to fall into?
I'll tell you the one that catches so many creators: shipping. Man, people do not take the time to figure out their shipping costs. You know, you can't necessarily ship a comic book media mail, for example, or they factor in the shipping, but they don't think about the envelopes or the Gemini mailers or the bags and boards, things like that. I know someone that did $1 million plus campaign that had to file for bankruptcy because overseas shipping. Their book got really big overseas. They did not factor in enough to ship those books overseas. And to their credit, they shipped the books over time, but shipping, man, triple check your shipping and factor in the bubble wrap, factor in, the envelopes, factor in the bags, the boards, everything else, because that's the one that I see catches people all the time. Like, oh, just charge $5 for shipping, It's like,
Well, and you got to factor in the pizza for having your buddies over to pack your Kickstarter, right? Like
that too.
That is
totally.
is something you cannot discount, because if you're inviting me over, I don't eat Little Caesars. I don't eat cheap pizza.
No $5 hollers.
No,
that's the one that I see a lot. I mean, I don't know about you, Chuck. That's the one that I get. I tell people all the time, watch out for that one.
Which one was that?
Shipping.
Watching out for shipping.
Oh,
that's something that unexpected thing that can jam them up.
Yeah. No, shipping's probably honestly the biggest one. It's just, I mean, that's the death knell for an awful lot of them, is just know as much. And also I would just say that, make sure that if you're new, find out as much as you possibly can. Chances are your team has done this before. Talk to your team. Ask all of the questions. Talk to his creators. Don't mind helping you along. No one wants to see you fail. Like, it does nothing for us for you to fail. In fact, the better you do, the more likely that you're going to bring new people in to Kickstarter, and maybe eventually they'll pick up my book or someone else's book. You know what I mean? Like, you're creating new fans and stuff. No one wants you to fail. Ask around. Get as much information as you possibly can.
One of the guests we are going to have on is Travis Gibb from Orange Cone Productions. Travis has like a Discord server where people who do crowdfunding can go and ask these questions. Creator hangouts. Tom Hutchison does them. Travis does them. I see a lot of folks doing them where they can have these discussions about, how do I figure out my shipping costs? How do I figure out, hey, I want to have bookmarks made, but I get one quote from Vistaprint, one quote from FedEx, and one quote from yada, yada, yada. How do I figure out what I'm getting for what I'm paying? Things like that. Like, so in terms of, someone said on a previous show, it costs $80 to ship a little box from Canada to England because of the strike in Canada. You can't plan for that.
Right. Perfect example. And people balk sometimes. Like, I work with a fulfillment center to do my shipping because Kyle charges too much for a pizza. He eats a lot of pizza. I mean, that guy if he went gourmet,
He's gone with me to pizza. He knows it's not.
I've seen.
I get premium toppings.
I've seen some things, friends. No, but
where's the arugula?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't eat the food my food eats, Chuck, but I am going to get all 4 kinds of bacon.
Right. But I talked to him, and I've done this once or twice, right? And I said, okay, these are my shipping costs for Canada, rest of the world, and things like that. And they got back to me and said, bump it up. And I'm like, what? And they said, yeah, bump it up at least $5, at least. So sometimes you're in a position where, I mean, I feel like a jerk almost. Like, hey, shipping this book to your country may be more than the price of the book. Sorry, but the thing is, again, that thing we talked about at the very beginning of the show, right? The transparency, being open with people. It's like, I appreciate that you want this book. I can't pay you to read it. Maybe you gotta get the digital, or you gotta decide how much you want it. I'm sorry, down the road, maybe you can get a standard edition another way. But if you want the Kickstarter, you want to get this on Kickstarter, this is the cost. And a lot of creators, especially when they're starting out, they don't want to be that person, and they don't want to get yelled at, right? They don't want to get anyone mad at them, and get the torches and the pitchforks after them. This person's charging $25 in shipping for this book to go from Michigan to Canada. Yeah. It costs $25 and the book's only 10. you can't control that stuff, right?
That brings up a really good point, though, and that is, when you're looking, because there's going to be a lot of places as you're doing a Kickstarter where you're going to get gouged. So where you also need to look is, where can I make some money? Where can I stretch out my profit margin a little bit? And too many people don't think about their digital rewards, and digital rewards is like massive profit. Push those digital, especially like for someone who's overseas and whatnot, and they're complaining, hey man, we have this amazing digital package with all these other indie comic creators who've come on and shared their stuff. And for that, you can, you're getting like 20 books and you're only paying $15, but that's $15 of pure cash. There's no shipping on that. All those people have gladly thrown their books in there to help you out because they know at some point when they need your help, you'll throw your book at them too. You'll throw them an issue 1 or whatever. So it's impossible to not find a bunch of the. You just ask around, hey, anyone want to throw in an issue 1, and they'll toss them at you like mad. You're gonna be fine. You'll find them. Don't worry. But yeah, digital deluxe tiers are just great money makers. Do not ignore your digital tiers.
Right.
So, as somebody who's ignorant to Kickstarter, because I'm just a fan, I just back them. I've always been curious: is it a personal preference, or is there a deciding factor between free shipping and charging for shipping after the campaign?
Well, okay, let's amend Jay's question. Shipping included in the price of the tier versus charging after the fact.
Okay, yeah, there we go. That's a better way to word it.
Yeah. I'm proud of you. Just Dirk, you're jumping in right away, and no one asked you to, and I respect it.
That's fine. I'll be that guy.
I will buy Dirk some time to quit squirming.
All right.
The next thing on our rundown was, what are some good experiences and bad experiences with crowdfunding? And one of them that I have is a book that I backed, that I paid for, and then they came to me for shipping well after the fact, and I told the creator to take a hike off a short pier.
Mm-hmm.
Because the shipping was so much more expensive than the project was worth. Keep my money. I don't want a refund. You needed the money to make your book, great. But you can go dive off a cliff before I'm going to spend
How about that? Right.
the same amount of money for you to send me the book.
Well, here's the thing. If they're transparent up front, we are going to charge you after for shipping, and they have a rough estimate, fine. I do something, and I'm in a place of a certain amount of privilege that I've done this enough that I offer as many times as I can free U.S. shipping. Now, I'm going to tell you a secret. We're all friends here. The shipping's not free. I'm baking it into the cost. Okay? I'm just telling you, look, I know that you get this deluxe edition of the book. I'm gonna figure that into, and we're gonna, that way there's no surprises, right? There's no surprises like producer Kyle's just talking about. Now, like, oh, what do you mean I owe you an extra $12? But again, if they put in the campaign, shipping will be calculated after the campaign. Even that's okay, but again, be transparent, be straight about it. If you can't take the time to at least give me a guesstimation of what shipping will probably cost, to me, as a creator and as a reader, I'm like, have you not done your homework on this stuff? Right? It's like, so that's crucial to me. I mean, again, be transparent. Let people know what's going on. If you're backing a board game or something like that, you need to understand it might cost $30, $40 to get it. But what's the value to me then to get this, pay you an extra $40? I either really like you, or I'm getting some really cool extra stuff out of this, or I'm going to feel really good helping you out.
Right.
Right.
I've backed a couple of board games that are large, and it's $100 for the board game, and it's $50 for shipping. But guess what? I have the Trogdor the Burninator board game in the wooden box with the wooden figures.
Right. Yes.
And guess who? Not a whole lot of people have that version of that game, right?
Yeah.
Worth it.
Yes.
But I'm not going to pay $25 for a floppy issue of an indie book to be shipped to me from LA.
Well, see, and like your example,
and
I would personally, as a backer, I would rather pay $150 and just tell me it's free shipping rather than pay $100 and $50 shipping.
Well,
that's just
so
me.
let me. This is the caveat I will say to my statement, right? If I go on Whalebacker or Backer Kit or one of those and I see, oh, hey, I didn't see this tier, I want to upgrade to this other thing, or I want to add on. When Dirk did Cthulhu Jr., I think I bought 3 Cthulhu plushies.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guess what? That's going to need a bigger box. So I understand paying the difference when I have adjusted what I am backing, right?
Right.
But there is a big publisher who I won't name names, but they did a crowdfunding project for a creator-owned book that they were trying to bring to the States. I backed it at a high level, and then it came time to ship, and they wanted more money. And I'm going, again, you have a shipping infrastructure. You could have figured this out and baked it in, or at least included it in the project.
Right. Don't leave me hanging, Chuck. Come on, jump in.
No, I got one for it. There was a project. Do you guys remember? I think it was like holidays of like 2020 or 2021 when the shipping prices suddenly like spiked big time. And after Thanksgiving, they basically said it's spiked and it's going to be that way until like February. And I remember somebody got their books in and went, guys, we had told you that you were going to be paying for shipping, but the shipping costs have just jumped up astronomically, and they're now way above what we expected. So are you all okay if we hold on to your books for the next 2 months? And then when they drop in the new year, we'll send them all. We'll throw something else in there or whatever to make it worth your while. But that way you don't get screwed by this, because it just so happens this is when everything came in. And they're like, yeah. And for the most part, everyone was like, yeah, okay. And if someone was really bitchy about it, cool. Well, this is how much it costs. If you want it right now, I'll send it to you right now. And some people got them right now and paid the extra, but for the most part, everyone was cool about waiting. And that saved everyone a lot of money. And so like Dirk said, man, just do best by your customers. Look ahead. Is there some way we can fix this? Like, you know, I always say, like, as an editor, I'm going to come to you with a problem, but I also have to come to you with several solutions. And then together, let's pick the right solution for the right problem. And so that's what we're going to do here in this situation. Here's what I'm going to do. What do you think?
Right. Brienne Brown, clear is kind, right? Clear is kind. Just be clear with people what's going on. And you will find, to Chuck's point, most people understand if you just, and Jay, you mentioned this earlier too, if you just tell people what's going on, most people are cool about it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, crowdfunding's been around long enough now. People get it and they get what they're doing. They're not a lot of times people aren't so much they're backing the creator as much as the product, right?
Or more, I
want to help Chuck's new thing come out because I like Chuck, and I know that because I like Chuck, I'm going to like this thing he's doing. And when I get this book, I'm going to feel real excited and real happy about it. Right? They back the person as much.
Dirk likes my book.
Yeah.
So, okay. I want to start hearing from the chat a little more, and we have a question that we're going to get to in a second, but put in chat, and I want to go around the table. What's an experience of backing or being involved in a crowdfunding campaign that was great? And what's an experience you've had that maybe wasn't so great? And I don't want you to name names, but here, more of a, this is why it wasn't so great kind of thing, or, good and bad experiences in the crowdfunding sphere. And once we ask the question, I will go first, because that way I give everybody time to kind of see what I'm talking about. But TJ James wants to know, would there be an advantage to being able to provide review copies to reviewers before the campaign ends?
Yes.
As someone who reviews books almost weekly, yeah.
I sent out 2 review copies for RSVP SP to people right before this call. Josh Mallerman's been sending it out to some of his peers. So yeah, I mean, I may not send the whole thing, but enough to give you a teaser. And also, when you create the page too, put some preview images on there, right? Give people a taste of what's going on.
Yes.
Put art on there.
As a fan, especially if it's the first time I've ever seen your stuff, I'm that person that's going to look through your entire page and read everything. Please give me some pages, give me some art, give me some stuff to, give me just a little bit. It doesn't even have to be like Ashcan or anything like that, but just a couple pages so I can kind of see what I'm getting into with the story. That's 100% best idea.
And can I say, even further than just art, lettered art. If I can see some lettered pages, if you give me 3 lettered pages from your book, you can hook me in. I can see that story, what it's supposed to look like. I can get excited about it, and I know that it's going to finish. I know what the finished product's going to be because it's lettered. So yeah, 100%.
Yep, because bad lettering can kill great art.
Oh, yes.
Well, and so I'll give you the best example. When Karma Volume 1 came out, we were having Dan on to talk on Talking Shop, right? And I had no idea what Karma was about. And I find out like 3 hours before the show that Jen or whoever was supposed to interview him couldn't make it. They were sick, and I had to interview him. So I go, Dan, we can talk all day, but we're here to sell a book. I need you to send me the book. And so he sent me a PDF, and I read it as fast as I could, so I knew what was in the book. So now when I ask him questions, I can tailor the questions in a way that helps him sell books, right? As a reviewer, giving me information that helps me sell your book is good information. Shout out Dave Chisholm yesterday, sending me the super secret private soundtrack to Spectrum so that I could read it and understand even more what they were going for in their storytelling, right? Like, by the way, the super secret private soundtrack will be available with the collected edition. They're still writing some of the music. Like,
that's cool.
Right. So, like, again, more information is always better, especially if you're a newbie, right? Chuck deals with a lot of first timers, I think. And if I don't know who you are and you want me to back your book or you want me to plug your book, I've got to know your book isn't trash. I hate to put it so bluntly, but like, I've got to know your book isn't trash. So send me proof. And that's one of the examples of getting burned, a good and bad experience, right? So good and bad experiences. One of my best experiences I ever had with a crowdfunding project was with a friend of mine who is a creator who lives on the other side of the country. And they offered uniquely to this campaign, pick it up from the creator at a convention.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now I'm going to see the creator of the book at the convention. He's going to sign my copies in front of me. And we had to come up with a super secret password. So because it was a friend, I made my super secret password real embarrassing for him. And so when I walk up to his table mate turns a shade of red that, like, just not even, just because the password was super embarrassing, and it worked out really well. So that's a good example. Another example is another friend who did a book that I backed because it was my friend. And I get the book, and they didn't have an editor. And the book was awful. Awful. Like, not just the English, but the story didn't make sense. Because they didn't have somebody going, you need to flip these 2 pages. You need to move this over here. Somebody checking the context of the story. And I felt really bad because the creator's like, what did you think? And I had to be like, I haven't read it yet. So that's the example of a bad experience. Does anybody else have like good and bad experiences to share?
Yeah, actually, I'll go first because poor Dirks had to go first a lot. I got you, homie. So you know what? Good. I am gonna use names. My dude, you talked about him earlier, Travis Gibb. One thing, I don't know if he's still doing it, but at one point he was lamenting the huge prices in shipping. And so he said, you know what? I have a bunch of extra copies of earlier things that I've done. Variants I'm having a hard time getting rid of, that kind of stuff. So if you purchase from overseas, because I know it's so much more expensive for you and whatnot, I will throw in some extra copies of some of my other stuff just as like a thank you. And I just thought that's friggin' cool. Like it never affected me. I wasn't overseas at the time. But just the fact that he would do that and he'd be able to make it a little more worthwhile for those people to be like, yeah, we're going to spend the 60, 70, whatever bucks because he's willing to throw in extra copies. I think that's really nice. So I loved that. I thought that was really cool and really thinking about how he was going to connect to that international audience, which is tough for all of us to get. The bad, will not mention the name, but this one stuck with me for a long time and I did not like it. Someone hit a stretch goal, announced said stretch goal, and then something happened where they dropped below it. Not significantly, but below the mark. And then it was done. And so they announced because they did not end up making enough for the stretch goal, no one was going to get that stretch goal. And I'm like, no, you already announced it and said that everyone's going to get it. They're expecting to get it. Like once you've announced it and said, this is what everyone's getting, even if you dip below, dude, don't penny pinch. Take the hit on the chin, get them their friggin' stretch goal. Everybody worked really hard to try to get there, and now all they're gonna see is that you offered them something and you took it back again. And it's not cool. So I'm gonna say if you announce your stretch goal, it's there in stone. You announced it. Get it out there. That's me.
That is an interesting one, right? Because it's like
I get it if you drop way below. Like I understand it's something.
Okay,
weird.
so they were close enough that it was.
This is like within $100, and I'm like, take the $100, man. Just come on.
Yeah, because sometimes you get people out there trolling and stuff like that.
I get it, but we don't all have to.
Right. Yeah, no, I feel you. I got you. I got you on that.
Lisa in the comments said her best experience was backing a project that turned into a big hit, and it feels like money well spent. The worst experience was lack of updates on a delayed and possibly abandoned project.
There it is.
Yeah.
Again, transparency. Just talk to people. The worst experience I had, not to be a downer, but the creator passed away before the book could get fulfilled. And that sucked.
Right.
That was awful. And I'm not saying because I didn't give my book, but rather it was a situation where this was a creator that struggled to get the thing out, and it was, I mean, I can say it. It was Jason Pearson, right? Someone who I knew.
Oh,
and
yeah.
He was really struggling to get the book out. I was friends with him, and Jason had, he had his demons. We all do to some degree, and his were very loud sometimes. But I remember talking to him on the phone, and him just like obsessing over trying to make sure this book was the next body bag was perfect, and just beating himself up to a ridiculous degree. And it's like, bro, the only thing better than a perfect book is a finished book, right?
Yeah.
Just get it out. But just get it out. It's like the worst thing you tell him. No, it had to be just right. Well, then the best thing was seeing them turn around and then do the artist edition body bags, and as a tribute and to help pay his to give funds to his family, give funds to his mom. But also what they did, what they did on this campaign was if you backed Jason's previous campaign, they credited you money back towards the Body Bags Artist Edition. How, again, like you talk about, Chuck, paying it forward, right?
Mm-hmm.
See,
Yeah.
how cool was that? How cool was that? They said, look, man, you know, Jason passed and stuff like that. We know you're expecting something from him. We're going to provide the art we can that he did, but also we're going to pay it forward to you. And remember, that money for Jason's book went to Jason, and it's long gone, right? Long gone. I mean, you know, do litany of factors. But they said, you know what? In good faith, if you backed his book, we will match that fund and apply it to this one. That to me is what Kickstarter and crowdfunding is about. When we talk about investing in the people and paying it forward, and that social contract you have when you ask someone to order something in advance, that was just a real class act move to do.
Okay.
Class act.
Jay, do you have one?
I'm going to be 10 ply with mine. Aside from having the campaign that didn't get, you know, any updates for 2 years, mine have literally all been great, and have the best part about it, not only getting awesome books, is befriending the creators. I have met in person everyone on this screen right now. And for a fan, I don't think y'all understand how awesome that is. So for me, Kickstarter is that, you know, I've met Jim Lee before. I've got to say a word to Jim Lee, but I've never been able to talk to Jim Lee like I talk to creators like Chuck and like Dirk. Like, that's what Kickstarter is to me. Kickstarter is just an amazing thing that, you know, I don't think that it's one of those, this is going to replace any and all comics. I don't think that at all.
Right.
This to me is just another level, another love for comics outside of what you're getting from other people.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
like I said, I'm soft like that. I have not had a super terrible experience, and I'm very fortunate and happy for that. Like, there's nothing that's ever that soured me, and I hope that continues. Knock on wood. But yeah, it's just, I don't know, man. Like I said, that's the greatest part about Kickstarter to me, is being able to befriend and meet creators. So
that's cool, man.
Yeah, no, I have one Kickstarter, and they're still giving updates 15 years out.
Sorry.
Hey, at least they're updating. Like, I have to say, I respect it.
In their defense, it was a documentary. It was a documentary chronicling 10 years from a certain event.
Oh, well, okay. So they're only 5 years behind.
They're only 5 years behind, but like, they're chronicling, you know, we finished editing. We now have all the clearances for all the music. We now have all the, blah, 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 you know, like they have had some legal troubles and some funding troubles. And when you're doing something like, so again, that transparency thing is super interesting. Okay. What do you look for in a campaign? And I want to hear this from the chat too. And I want to hear from you guys. If you're looking at another person's campaign or even your own, what do you look for when you're looking at a campaign that's a positive or negative that would affect your backing, right? When you're putting your own Kickstarter together, what do you look for that's a positive or a negative? And then if you're backing another's, what do you see? Like, what do you look for that, yes, this is a thing that will always make me back it, or no, this is a thing that will always make me not?
I mean, for me right away, it's that art. I need to see that finished art and proofing. Did you proofread your actual campaign? Because when I'm finding campaigns with massive, like, just riddled with spelling mistakes, I am done. Like, if you can't even proof your campaign, I do not feel good about your book. So proofread that thing like mad. I've literally gotten jobs because I've gone to creators and gone, hey, just so you're aware, there's this on paragraph 2, blah, blah, blah. You said this. And, oh, crap. Yeah. Not an issue. Just wanted you to be aware because It doesn't look good on you or anybody else. And, we miss things. So you don't have to be a douche about it. But if it's riddled with mistakes, you're only telling me that you're not going to, if you can't even take the page professionally, you're definitely not going to take the project professionally.
Spoken like a true editor.
I am what I am.
Hey, man, I didn't say it was a bad thing. My biggest thing, probably the number one factor to me, the first thing I look at, like Chuck said, if the page looks interesting, the art and stuff, art, how many projects have they backed?
Yes.
I was trying to give you the softball, Chuck. I was trying, like, hey, man.
It was a very good one. You're right. That's a really good one.
No,
that's a really good one.
Yeah, nice guy, Dirk Manning, right? And then I call you out when you don't pick that one. No,
yeah.
What a heel. No, honestly, to me, that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
This is what makes me cringe. When someone launches a campaign, even if it's first created and zero backed, it's like, you backed nothing. No, I don't care if you're creating a new profile, a new account. Go back 10, right? Even, hey, again, I'm going to tell you a secret, kids.
$1.
Go back. Bingo. High five.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Go back them for $1. Something. Just show me on some level you are invested in this community to some degree. And then you're not treating this like a cash grab. You can't spend $10 just to fake it. Really? Come on. All right, sorry. I don't like to talk about negative stuff, but that's my.
Right. No, you're dead right. And that $1 backing, by the way, everybody, is huge because in his case, the person didn't have any followers. But like, if someone like Dirk or I, or actually anyone on here, because we've all taken care of a lot of Kickstarters, when we put $1 towards a Kickstarter, everyone who's following us, usually like 100+ people, all are then told this person supported that. They don't say how much they supported it for. They said they supported it. That was $1 that I spent or we spent as an advertisement for your project, and it's huge. That dollar is huge. I've only ever complained about $1, and it was once, and it was because a dude backed me for $1 and then pulled out, and I was like, "Why are you pulling out for $1, buddy?" But that's the only time I ever bitched about the $1. Other than that, it's so petty. Come on, why'd you have to back out of the $1?
That's the one when you get these scammers to come in, pledge for pledge, bro. And they pledge for $1, and then they pull it out after you promote theirs.
Right?
But you're right. I mean, that's the thing. Even like pledging at the digital level or something, or just kicking them $5 just because. I've done stuff where I've pledged for someone's book, knowing I'm going to buy another copy anyway. But like you said, just to show other people I'm showing support to this person.
Right.
But yeah, if you have a campaign and it's a zero backed, I'm gonna have a real chalky, bitter pill to swallow to back your campaign because you couldn't even fake it, right? You couldn't just go randomly back 10 things for $1. I mean, come on, man. And I'm not encouraging doing that. People can say, well, yeah, no wonder Dirk backed 420 campaigns. He backed them for $1 each. No, but rather it's a situation where be part of the community, see what's going on, and just be a team player, man.
Right.
That's all.
I want to piggyback real quick off of what Dirk was saying, and this is mainly for fans, right? Don't feel like I love Dirk and Chuck to death, but I won't go to their campaign and back a $300 tier or something if I know full well I'm not going to be able to pay for that.
Right.
So then what am I going to end up doing? I'm going to end up having to either, cancel the pledge completely, or I'm going to have to drop it down. Never back if you don't think you can handle it. Don't do that because that's going to hurt. That's going to hurt y'all trying to get to your goal. If we're here at the goal, well, this person just dropped their $500 pledge down to $5.
Yep.
So don't back above just because you love the creator.
Yeah,
Jay
you're
jumping
not
ahead
doing
of the
anybody
timeline.
favors. And then to Chuck's point earlier, then all of a sudden now you're not hitting a stretch goal, and what do you do?
Yeah.
I don't have it pulled up, Kyle. Sorry.
No. So I was just going to give mine, and then we were going to talk about that anyway, Jay. One of the things I look for in a campaign is, right, how many have you created? How many have you backed? But I look for a retailer tier. And if you're not offering a retailer tier, because not everybody can, I'm looking for something that shows, hey, I'm trying to support local comic shops in some way, right? Or I'm trying to, you want to order, here's a 5-copy bundle of some kind. You know what I mean? Something to that effect, right? That's a positive. A negative is somebody who's in there going, I'm doing this because nobody wants to sell my books and nobody wants to put me on shelves and I can't, blah, 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 blah. I got no distribution. That to me is a middle finger to people like me, right? Who back these projects to put them on shelves. So just know that you never know who's reading your campaign.
Yeah.
So you don't burn bridges in your campaign. That's the negative thing that I see. If you're burning bridges in your campaign, then we're done. But if you're offering a bridge, like a retailer tier or a bundle tier or one of my favorites, a get caught up tier.
Yep.
Hell, I didn't meet Chuck until he was on like issue 3 of his book. Well, I want to back Chuck's book, but I want to read issues 1 and 2, damn it.
Right.
So if you have a get caught up bundle,
the catch up tier.
Yeah. Like sold, because now I can buy all 3. I can support you for all 3. And now I know what's going on. I don't like to know what's not going on.
And maybe you weren't in a place originally where you could back the first 2, but now you are, right? Your transmission went out, your roof got blown off your house, whatever the situation was, right?
Right.
Now you can still jump in and get caught up, right? That's stuff that's good. That's best practice.
Okay. So what can fans do to support people who are doing things the right way? And Jay just said it. Don't back higher than you can afford. Don't back and kick out. That's the thing. That's one of my notes is like, I've had to do it. I've had to message creators going, hey man, I backed for $100 and I really want the $100 tier, but like I just got laid off.
Right.
I got to back out. But just know when I get my finances, I'm going to come to you with that $100 and be like, hey, I want to buy some stuff. Like, hell, one of my best friends in the business, Vic Dandridge, I had to do that too. And Vic understood, and once I got my finances, said, here, bro, here's $100. He's like, okay, I don't have anything worth on. I don't care. I don't care. But what can fans do, Chuck and Dirk, to support the people who are doing it right?
Talk about it. Like, seriously. And I mean, a lot of people don't realize it, but Kickstarter in and of itself is kind of a social media platform all in and of itself. So if you're commenting on the Kickstarter, when it's getting shared, all that kind of stuff, there is an algorithm. It will get pushed more, especially with the comments and stuff. Talk about it. If you've read the previous books and you have something cool to say it. If you're seeing something in this current campaign, talk about it. Like, seriously, what you have to say about this project and the people in it, it has a lot of weight. Please use that weight. It would mean the world to us. Not even just an ego thing, though. Certainly, those things are fragile as hell. You can use whatever buttressing possible, but just for the other fans who are maybe like not so sure, and then they see, someone awesome like Jay comes in. Jay always has nice things to say, and it's just like, hey man, I read this series. I freaking love this series. So excited about the new Immortal Era or the new, whatever next book. And great, someone's now in there and they went, hey, this dude seems to be completely sold on the idea. And I thought it was kind of cool too, so I'll jump on. what you have to say matters. Speak, please.
Right. Yeah, I really appreciate you said too, Chuck, about it, not just about the ego, like the dopamine, right? Oh, getting
Yeah.
my dopamine drip. Someone liked it, or someone said something nice. Yeah, direct referrals are so important, right? You know, I always appreciate when people like share out the links to the campaigns and stuff I'm doing. But I tell people as well, and I say this all the time, and I probably say it to the point that people just gloss over it. But I'm like, if you like this campaign, if you like what we're doing here, tell someone else that might like it. Because you think about, how do we pick movies we watch? How do we pick restaurants we go to? How do we pick music we listen to? It's direct reference. Kyle might, get a hold of me and say, hey man, I saw this movie, you might want to check it out, or whatever, Okay, that personal reference. Sharing is caring. Sharing is awesome. That definitely helps. But knowing that the algorithms choke stuff out too, tell people directly. Say, you know what? Hey, FYI, my buddy's doing this. Or sometimes like, I don't even know the person, but like I'll see a campaign and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is my thing. But you know who's gonna love it? Chuck's gonna love it. Jay's gonna love it. Kyle's gonna love it. Jenna's gonna love it. Hi, Jenna. Right, or whatever. Like, hey, FYI, here's this thing that you may be interested in, right? And that makes a huge difference as well. Because the other thing is, the way Kickstarters trend and stuff, when you're getting pledges and stuff like that, there's also internal metrics to. We can go into the process stuff on this forever, but keeping that momentum is very powerful for a campaign. It's very powerful to help other people doing it. To supporting it and things like that. So there's a direct referral. You're absolutely right, man. Huge part of it. I mean, the public referral is nice too. Again, you get that little dopamine drip, like, ooh.
Yeah.
The word of mouth, bro. Word of mouth.
But tell people directly too, and refer that way if you believe in it.
The number of Facebook messages I had for a certain creator of anthropomorphized talking animals autobiography when they crowdfunded it was so ridiculous. I couldn't help but back it at like a ridiculous level. Like I had like 100 people sending me this person's book. I'm like, y'all, I was backer number 3 already.
Right. I'm in
So,
on it, guys. I'm in.
Needless to say,
we got to make that post, Kyle, and tell people, look, I backed it. Right.
I mean, hell, I had read it already. But what are some things fans can do in you guys' experience to protect themselves from iffy? If a project is iffy, what are some things that they can do to protect themselves?
Icky in what regard?
Well, if you see things in the project, again, Chuck, if you go to a project and there's no art, but maybe it's a creator and it looks iffy to them, what are some things fans can do to protect themselves so they don't get taken for a ride? My answer is always, okay, if I'm going to back this project, I'm maybe going to back it at the digital tier level. Like if the digital tier is $5, I'm going to back it at an amount that if I get burned, I'm not pissed.
Yeah.
Right.
In you guys' experience, what are some things people can do to kind of protect themselves?
Go ahead. Yeah. No, you first.
Rock, scissors, paper. Yeah. Go ahead.
All right. I'm going to make Jay go first.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
And the only thing I can say is if you're iffy on a project, you shouldn't back it then. Like, that's the only advice I can get. Like, if you're that iffy on something. Now, what I will say is if, say you have a friend that has backed a project from this person or whatever before, the word of mouth thing will help. Can you go to this person and be like, hey man, I see you've backed this person before. Can you tell me, about their project? Like when you got the book in, was the book what you expected? Did you like it? All that other stuff. But outside of that, man, it's really on you a lot of the times. You know, don't just skim the page. Read what's on that campaign page. Like that's the only advice I really have. Like I said, I don't know the inner workings of Kickstarter. I'm just the dude that backs the projects. So if I have a bad feeling about it, I'm probably not going to back it.
I would say if I'm, especially as someone who has done a bunch of Kickstarter backing and, worked on a lot of Kickstarter projects and stuff, uh, if it was missing something fundamental like art or something that would make me go, sounds like a really cool project, but there's just not enough there, I would contact the actual creator and just be like, hey man, I'm really interested in this project, but it's missing this. Like, there's certain things that I need to see that. Do you have anything like that? Is that just missing, or because if they're telling me, oh yeah, art's pretty much done, and then they're not showing me, well then what's going on? Like, did you just not get it on in time, or are you lying to me? And of course, don't tell them I think you're BSing me, but just ask the questions. Hey man, I'm not seeing any art, but I'd really love to see some. What does that look like, or whatever? And hopefully, if they're direct and honest with you, you're going to get the answers that will push you one way or the other. Because maybe talking to them, maybe it turns out that there was a really good reason for you being iffy. And sometimes maybe they just screwed up and forgot something, and you've helped them to be able to now put it in their campaign. Oh, I didn't even think to put pictures of interiors. I only threw covers on there. Oh yeah, no, I need to see interior. Okay, cool. We'll do that. Well, cool. Now I know that you care. You've shown, and I'm more likely to bet.
Yeah. Number of projects created is a big one, which can be kind of elitist to people getting started. But that's one that's like, if I've seen it done a couple of projects, like, okay. And the other one, and this again kind of values off what Chuck was saying a little bit too, it's like the level of integrity and enthusiasm and transparency they're putting forward on their campaign. If they're saying, look, this is my first campaign, I'm looking to do this book in this way, blah, blah, blah. Okay, man. In fact, something that's very endearing, right? I think sometimes we get to be legacy creators. People are like, I'm not going to do this one. Not realizing that, like, as a legacy creator, every book I do, I'm super excited about. I can't wait for people to get it, right? But I know personally, like, I'm in a position now where it's like, for the next year or so, probably I'll be in a cycle where everyone got love stories about death. If you back that campaign, you got the book. London After Midnight, with the campaign we just finished, is at the printer as we speak. 2 weeks, I'll be launching the next book, right? So I'll always be one behind. But I've gotten to that place by running about 16, 17, 18, 20, whatever's in campaigns. People trust that they are going to get the thing that they got. So as you progress down this road, recognizing where you're at and and I guess not taking it for granted. I think that's the other thing, be humble, recognize that you're entering a social contract with people and you're asking them to pay for something they're not going to get for a bit, and just getting that vibe of integrity. And then also with that situation where if they have a track record, right? I've backed some campaigns from first time creators, that is. And then I'm getting, the monthly update with the excuse. And it's like, I know this person meant well and their first time in and stuff like that, but it's gonna really take a lot for me to maybe back that second one. Maybe I'll come back for the third one if they do a third one. But that's the other thing too, regarding the ick. I think a lot of times if people burn their backers one time, because it's such a transparent process, because everything's out in the open, people tend to shrink down pretty quickly and not poke their head up for a second one anytime soon. So really, you get the Kickstarter creator pool gets cultivated pretty quickly.
One of a great example, and another answer for me is Google the name.
Right.
I had, when I first backed when I first came across Stephen Mooney, I had never heard of Stephen Mooney, and it was the first crowdfunding project Stephen had done. And I Googled the name, and Stephen Mooney is someone who has worked in the UK and worked on Euro books, but really hadn't broken in the United States yet. Oh, here's this long list of credits. Well, that's 2000 AD. Oh, that's Fantagraphics. Oh, that's Humanoids. Oh, that's okay. This is someone who has a track record, even though I don't know it. Right. And they've never had to crowdfund before because they've never done a creator-owned from scratch before. Okay. Well, now I have a level of trust. Right? Dirk has his Verner's flown into hell, Eddie. We have to drop ship it. The man on the river Styx charges a hefty freight fee, but it works out.
Anyway, the nectar of the gods in the Midwest, right? We know
sick
our
pop.
Verners. That's right, sick pop. Not that I'm sick,
Anyway.
but yeah. Good eye.
Anyway,
Good eye.
So the Google, and we're going to talk about this in a minute. I didn't want to rope these two into kind of the what are my gatekeeping Kickstarter rules going forward, so that I'm not. When I Kickstarter in here, man, yeah. But
hey, more of those Kickstarters,
right? Little things like that. Again, I said I was talking to a creator today, and I go, man, if I can afford it, I will back your Kickstarter because it's you. Even if it's a book I don't care about, right? Even if it's a book that ain't for me. Oh, you're doing a manga? It ain't for me. You're doing a queer manga. I'm out. Like, it ain't for me. But guess what? I'm gonna back it. I'm gonna get the book, and I'm gonna find somebody who it's for, and give it to them. There are creators that I will back just because of who they are, and that's an important factor. So before we jump into like I start talking about that stuff, and I'll let Chuck and Dirk go if they need to. We have some questions. Did you ever have a Kickstarter project where you were worried it wouldn't fund and it ended up exploding into several times your funding goal?
All of them? Not. I mean, most of them. You're like, oh, what if this one is the one that doesn't fund? Like, what if? And if you've done your due diligence and stuff, but most of them start with hand wringing, worry, anxiety.
Every time. It's so, every time, is this the one? Is the jig up? Have I overextended my audience? Oh, I'm doing a book about our superheroes. Is this the one that people are gonna not support? Oh, it's volume 5 of Tales of Mystery. Are people burned out on this series? Or, oh, I'm doing a book with a wrestler. Is that gonna be the one that's not like my horror stuff? Or every time I'm an absolute nervous, disgusting wreck about it. One that went bonkers, and it was funny. I knew that I had one particular Kickstarter I did, which I knew would do well, and it was Butts and Seats, the Tony Schiavone story. And much love to my publisher, much love to Source Point, but it was so funny because they're all like, "Okay, we gotta do this, we gotta do this, we gotta do this," and I'm sitting there, I'm like, that book right there. And
there you go.
I was literally at the publisher headquarters when they were getting ready to launch. Like, we're gonna pour all this money into these ads and this and this and this. And I'm like, guys, Tony got a sting at MJF and Cody Rhodes. I've got all these promos lined up. Tony's gonna be talking about the book on TV. We're gonna be okay. And it went nuclear, right? It went we did like $135,000 on that book, thanks in huge part to Tony. But the publisher was like, we really got to hit this funding goal, blah, 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 blah. That was the only time when I'm like, if this doesn't work, just I'm out, right? Yeah, just pick me up my lapel and throw me out. But like, if MJF cutting a promo on this book does not make this go viral, what are we doing? But that being said, that was there was a lot of external factors. Every time though I launch Kickstarter, Chuck is exactly right. It's full circle. It's that vulnerability. It's nerve-wracking. It's terrifying.
Yep.
I'm terrified about this one coming up. I mean, I'm working with the New York Times #1 best-selling author who created a book that became a cultural phenomenon in Bird Box. I know Josh is amazing. I know the book's amazing. The book is done. I'm still nervous. I'm always nervous every time I do this.
So
I'm talking about being nervous.
Real quick, chat, do you have any questions for Chuck or Dirk before we kind of move into our wrapping up phase? I know Dirk has some work he's got to get done for sure. Do you guys have any questions? Throw them in the chat. In the meantime, plugs.
Ooh.
Go ahead, Chuck.
Yeah, okay. Actually, I have a couple things on Kickstarter right now. We can't put up the link, but I have a naughty book on there, and I've never written one before. But one of the publishers that I work with, they said, "Do you want to write something naughty?" And I went, "Yeah, okay." So if you guys want to look up Cretaceous on Kickstarter, Cretaceous issue 3 through Ethereal Comics, I got brought on. I'm already editing for them, along with Dan Wickline, and I got to write one of the series, and having a really good time. Never gotten to do an NSFW book before, and so really just having some fun with the tongue-in-cheek sort of stuff that I never get to play with. So that's been a lot of fun. And then a brand new creator dropped his Kickstarter today. He's super excited. He has this amazing book. He is from New York City. He was in New York City on 9/11, and his book is called The September Paradox. And it is about a man who survived 9/11, was obviously emotionally scarred, as a lot of us were by that event, and is now has tried to find a way to go back in time in order to better deal with that situation. And it's a very interesting book, very excited by it. Brand new creator, really good roster of people, and he was smart enough to bring on a solid editor. So check out September Paradox on Kickstarter right now.
Oh yeah. Sorry, I'm looking up September Paradox as we
right,
because that's
as
how
I think we all are at this moment.
Someone like, oh, that's good art on this and stuff too.
Yeah. Dino, I believe Dino Agor did the interiors. Really good stuff. He's got a nice set of people that he's worked with. Brand new creator, but he's been trying to make stuff as far back, I think, since like 2019, and just never quite got anything off the ground. And so this one finally got finished. It's looking good. It's something that I think, obviously, as a New Yorker for him, it's very close to home. And I was like, this is the project you wanna bring out first. So September Paradox, people, I think it's a really cool one. It's a neat idea, and I think he's heading down the road towards some really fun, interesting stuff. So I think you guys will take that.
One moment, please.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Dirk is working on
I'm working on backing a Kickstarter. Hold on a second. All right, I just back September Paradox. So
you're the man. Thank you, homie.
That looks great, man. And again, first time creator, it's awesome. So yeah, my book coming out April 1st. I encourage everyone to go check out rsvp-esp.com. This is a graphic novel that I'm writing based on an unpublished story, a previously unpublished story by Josh Malerman. Josh Malerman is the New York Times #1 bestselling author of Bird Box. His most recent book, Incidents Around the House, is probably one of the best horror books I've read in the last 10 years. Illustrated by Joshua Ross, who's a longtime collaborator of mine. 120-page graphic novel, fully illustrated, fully colored. By the time the campaign ends, the book will pretty much be fully lettered by Dave Lentz. Again, we're offering a Kickstarter exclusive hardcover. With the first time I've ever done this, we're doing a lenticular cover. That's going to be Kickstarter exclusive on the hardcover. We have some real cool stuff lined up with this book. You know, this is Josh Malerman's first foray into the world of comics. And it's just been an amazing experience. Josh is an absolutely amazing guy. So people can check out rsvp-esp.com or just go to Kickstarter. And I should probably check if you type in RSVP if it will show up. I would hope it will. But we also have, like, I've been very fortunate. We have one of the, if you type in RSVP, it'll pop up. We also have one of those really cool, like advanced preview pages. Like the preview page actually has like images and stuff on there about the book and things like that. So you can check that out as well. RSVPESP.com launches April 1st. No fooling.
Damn.
And Dirk will be here April 7th on Talking Shop
With Josh
Merriman.
Well, yeah, that'll be really
talking to Miss Jen or maybe me, or we'll see. But we will have that information for you in the coming days. Okay, I have a question I want to ask, and again, Dirk, I know you got work to do if you need to pop or whatever. No problem.
I'll stick around for one more before I get back to RSVP ESP.
How do we feel about projects that come in with a goal so far below what they actually need to make? So they say funded in seconds, funded in minutes, funded in hours.
Yeah. I've seen people do the gimmick where, oh, it's $1. Oh, it's $100. Look, and then their mom funds it or whatever, and it's like, I in my day have been accused of loving a gimmick or two. And I some people would argue that half of my career has been based on the gimmick and the guy with no face and stuff like that, right? But the difference between that and people that do things like the super low funding goal, the offensively low funding goal, is you're not laughing with me, you're laughing at me, right? And you're really violating the intent of what we're trying to do here. And it's like, is your ego so fragile that you are so desperate you have to get funded? Again, this is a very tough thing to do, but be reasonable, right? Even if it's like a $500 goal, $1,000 goal or something like that. I mean, $1,000 goal on a $20 book is $50. That's more than a book a day. If you're doing a month-long campaign, you're a new person. That's ambitious. I don't ever like to, pee in people's cornflakes about what they're doing or whatever, but on a personal level and as a fan, it's like, you're not laughing with me, you're laughing at me. That's my take on it. I don't know how you feel, John. That's I mean, again, I hate ending on a downer note like that, but to me, that's like, come on, man. Honor the spirit of the social contract we have going on here.
No, I actually agree with you. Like when I'm editing someone's book, I will tell them, especially if it's a floppy, do not give the reader any reason to put this down. Because with a floppy, they need to go through the whole floppy in one go. If they put it down, there's a very good chance they'll never pick it back up again. Don't give them a reason to put it down. Same thing with here. Don't give anyone any reason to think that you're doing anything untoward or silly. If you have a $1 goal, I don't think you're taking it seriously. If I don't think you're taking it seriously, a bunch of other people probably feel the same way. So don't.
A $1 goal,
if there's
or
a
$1
reason
fine?
why. Pardon me?
A $1 goal, or like a $1 just you can follow along?
No. No, I don't. $1 follow is fine. No, $1 goals. I've seen $1 goals. I've seen $100 goals. Like really, really, really low goals. And I'm like, those really, really low goals give me a good reason to not trust you. Don't give those reasons. I would rather you had a ridiculously, like maybe even a goal that you can't hit, because at least that way I know you are motivated to try to hit that, even if it's not something you can do. Whereas if you hit the $1 or the $100 or whatever, then what are you motivated to do after that? You already hit your goal. What does anyone care about? What are we celebrating? And I think that's the best thing. That's what I love best about Kickstarter is you're constantly celebrating. You're celebrating getting 25% of the way, 50%. We hit our goal. Now we're celebrating stretch goals. Now we're in our last 3 days. There's always something to celebrate. Give them something to celebrate for. Making a goal of $100 or $1 or whatever insignificantly low number is not something to get excited about. Give your people something to get excited about.
It's cheap.
That easy.
It's just,
it's
just
a lame gimmick.
Yeah, it's insulting.
Yeah,
it's heel heat. It really is.
Yeah, I love good heel heat. It's not even. It's just like.
But it's easy heat. It's easy.
Yeah.
It's low hanging fruit. It's not. Again, I don't. And I'm gonna say something. And I Chuck, I know you're working with Ethereal, and I know that some of the bad bug guys are friends of Jay. Don't just throw tits on the cover of a book.
I agree.
Make it part of the book. If you're doing a book where that kind of thing is a part of your story, then fine. If you're doing it as I have a pretty girl in my story, and this is the pretty girl variant, and then here is the NSFW version of that pretty girl cover, fine. That's part of the book. But I've seen projects on Kickstarter where there are no women in the book, and yet there's a nude girl on the cover. Like, this is a book about robots. What's she got to do with robots? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if your character is just a pretty girl and you want to do that because that's your character, I'm good with that, right?
Be free.
But don't be that guy who's, all right, I have a book about these turtles that are mutated by some slime and they fight crime. And here's a naked girl on the cover.
Doesn't April O'Neil look great naked there? Why?
Right. Don't advertise high beams and then all you get is hazard lights. Right? Like, you know,
that's really good. That's really good.
I'm good with if it's a character in your book, or, you know, like, again, there's sex as a part of your story or whatever, but do not, like, again, it's just a bad look, I think.
See, you say nudity and turtles, and look what Nope said.
Yeah, shut up and take my money, right? But again, it's a book like some of the Ethereal books that I've bought. The nudie covers on those books make sense because of what's in the book.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be my jam, but it makes sense to offer it for the people who want it. What was it? London Knights did the topless Pamela Anderson covers in the 90s. It made sense because of the content that's in the book. Was that London Knights, London Fog, London something? Anyway,
with London After Midnight, we did not have
no.
Ron Chaney.
This book published that lasted about 6 seconds in the 90s. You know, like,
right.
But it made sense because of what's in the book. When Titan does, it makes sense because of what's in the book. Do not sell me a kaiju versus robots book and then do that cover. Just saying.
Sexy kaiju.
Now, you want to put a sexy kaiju on the cover, that's just art.
That's art.
So, okay, I know Dirk's got to bounce. Chuck, if you want to hang out, we're going to kind of talk through some of the stuff over here. You know, coffin launch is an interesting concept that Polito's doing. I think any kind of crowdfunding, and the one thing I wanted to bring up is that I hate the name crowdfunding. I think community funding is a way more apt name because it really is about building a community for your work.
Well, it's direct sales.
Right. Again, direct to consumer kind of has a bad connotation right now.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, it's community funding, right? It's community selling. It's when I met Dirk, he was at a big chain bookstore in the middle of a blizzard. And I might have been the only person who showed up for the signing.
No, right? Someone else did eventually show up. Someone else did show up.
Okay, well, but you know what I'm saying. Like, it was but it was a community event, and Dirk was part of my community.
Right.
Right. Yeah. So kickstarting is building a community around your work and to support your work. So I like the idea of
community funding. Community.
Yeah.
That's a much higher note. Now I can leave in good conscience because when we're just talking about, you know, Godzilla movies and everything else, I'm like, you know, like, oh man, I can't do it.
Right.
Thank you, gentlemen, man. Chuck, very good.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, check out
April
April 1st.
7th. Mark your calendars.
Just go to that campaign, follow that. We're launching April 1st, and Kyle and Jay, I'll see you guys on April 7th. But if you've enjoyed this chat, check out Chuck's stuff as well, and then just go to Kickstarter, type in RSVP or this URL, follow the campaign. You'll get a one-time notice when we go live. Thank you, friends.
Yep. Thanks, Dirk.
Okay, Dirk.
Thanks, guys.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm going to run too, boys. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me here. Always love hanging out.
Chuck soon. I have some ideas for the Chuck. So we'll be seeing more
Yeah.
soon.
I love that.
As long as he likes my ideas and doesn't edit
I
me too
usually
hard
do.
when I send him those ideas.
Look,
Kyle, you spelled lap dance wrong or whatever.
Yeah, we could talk about Chuck's next series, Kaj Nudes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's happening now.
Yeah.
So
thank you guys. Have a good one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Take care, Chuck. Good seeing you, brother.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
all right. So I wanted to, before we wrapped up, I opened the show with kind of how I was dealing with my Kickstarter addiction, and during the show I may or may not have backed multiple projects. Anyway, but so I have some gates that I have put on, and I want to talk to Jay about his, like, how do you control, because again, we talked about budget friendly, right? We talked about you got to be able to back at a level you can afford. Your boy, if you don't have a retailer tier or a bundle tier or something where you're offering a package to the direct market or to the, to the retailer, I don't really want to back your project too much. I'm only at this point backing projects of known commodities. Now, did I go back September Paradox because Chuck told me to? Yes. That's what I mean. If it's something somebody knows, somebody that somebody knows. Dan Price was a great example.
Yep.
Bigfoot loves karate. Bigfoot knows karate. That was Jay and those guys. That's a known commodity because Jay knows those guys. So that's one of my rules. Retailer tier, known commodity. And the third thing is if you don't have a digital tier and I don't know if I'm going to dig the book, I'm out. Digital tiers are easy, I think. And like Chuck said, pure profit.
Yeah.
Jay, what kind of guardrails do you put on your Kickstarter spending?
I can tell you what I used to have that I need to start doing again. Because I kind of had to, limit my stuff for a while because we didn't have the exact funds we had a couple years ago. One of my things, and I need to start bringing it back, is if I've backed an issue, I'm going to wait. And if you make it to a trade, then I'll back your trade. But you got to realize it gets really expensive trying to get every issue of a Kickstarter project. And I understand how that sounds to a lot of people. But for me personally, it's purely monetary. It's purely I can't not have a house to put my books in.
Right.
I can't not have a house for my wife and my dog.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something she understands too. So it's usually if we really like a book and it's from like a number one, we've never backed this person before, we'll back it, but we'll wait. We'll wait. And if there's a trade that comes out later, then we'll worry about it. We also try not to do more than 2 projects a month, depending on when they end. And it's a personal thing. It's a personal thing I have to put on myself so I don't go crazy, because comics are a very addicting thing to me. I love comic books, and you know, if money wasn't a question, I'd be backing a lot more than I do. So
Right.
it's a personal goal for myself to, hey, you know, let's pick out really, and it's so hard, right? It's a really hard thing to do too, because I have a lot of not only my friends, but there's so many great projects out there. So picking and choosing what you do is just it takes a lot of restraint, a lot of self control. But like I said, for myself, if I've already backed an issue or two of your project, my gate is all right. We got to wait, see if we're gonna get a trade or something. Because like I said, it you can ask a lot of people, Kickstarters, even when you go for the ones that are $5 or $10, they do add up if you're not careful. Just like buying comics, it adds up if you're not careful.
Right. No, it's true. So, guys, there are a lot of projects out there that you can back. There are a lot of people out there who are using crowdfunding right now to try to navigate an uncertain comic market. I think what Jay said earlier, and it's something that, you know, I completely agree with. If you feel icky, don't back the project. Again, for me, it's even if it's somebody I know and I feel icky, I'll back at a low enough level that I can support my friend by hitting the share button and say I've backed the project, but not at a level that it's going to hurt my soul if I get boned by my friend, right?
Yeah.
I've had too many friends who are doing this that get funded and then have life happen or have things happen or whatever where they can't fulfill even if they wanted to. Yeah. We talked earlier about the project where the money got stolen by an ex-partner. There's nothing that creator can do about that, right? They can sue, they can fight in court, but like at some point, does it not make more sense just to go make the money and fulfill the Kickstarter? You know, so that's kind of my rule at this point, kind of my go-to. Is if I feel icky, again, even for real well-known commodities, I'm going to back at a low enough level that I don't feel like I'm going to get hurt, but at the same time, I feel like I can help a little. So, right. All right, guys, this has been Kyle and Jay's Q&A. Thank you, everybody, for being in the chat and having a good, lively chat. There was some really good stuff that I would have loved to dive into more, but we're already at 2 hours, and I've made a promise since we started the show that we weren't going to be the Hydra Hangout, where we go 7.5 hours or some crap.
Hey, we only go 3.5 hours now. We trust me. I hear some crap about it sometimes. Hey, we don't do 7-hour shows anymore. It's like, yeah, I can't do that every time. But
John Stout, you will be the last question of the night, my friend. How do you feel about creators that worked for a publisher but are now only doing Kickstarter? I don't care. To be honest, most work in comics these days is work for hire. Just because you worked at a publisher didn't mean you worked for a publisher, right? It's, you know, there are a lot of creators who are hired on a contract by contract basis to do a job. You know, and when that contract's up, they're just unemployed. And a lot of times they don't own the work they did for the publisher. So they're getting nothing on that. There was a big conversation, we talked about it last week with Dustin Wen about how comics don't necessarily pay a living wage. Well, one of the responses was if you don't own what you make, then no matter what they offer to pay you, it's not a good deal. This is kind of that same boat, right? A lot of times people go to Kickstarter because then they own what they're doing. So I don't really care about creators that worked for a publisher but are now only doing Kickstarter. Mainly because usually they're doing something different. They're not going to Kickstarter and trying to fund new projects that are owned by a publisher unless they're still working with that publisher. Right? Jim Lee is not going to come to Kickstarter to fund Batman. But he may to fund a creator-owned project that's not at DC. And that would be fine because that's how this is done these days. Is that kind of what you're talking about, John? Jay, do you have any thoughts?
I just want creators to get paid. I want them to make their money. And if it is hey, my contract is out with this publisher, let me go to Kickstarter or some crowdfunder or, community funder, as I want to call it now. Yeah, go ahead. I'm all for it.
And by the way, if it is a creator-owned project that was at a publisher and they're kickstarting it now, it's probably because that publisher doesn't want to publish it anymore, but they have more stories they want to tell. They're still fans. That's why Painkiller Jane is one of the things I always back when Palmiotti runs it. Used to be at a publisher. It ain't anymore. But Jimmy owns that character and wants to keep telling stories with her. So that's my take on that one, John. All right, guys. Tomorrow, 7 o'clock Eastern, What's in the Box with Miss Jen. Then at 9 o'clock Eastern is the Geek Chat with Rich and Dez. And then Mel and Mog are back with Rob Multari talking about Snowpaw, a project that is a crowdfunder. Then Friday at 11 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. That's noon for Jay. Don't be late. And by the way, I'll talk to you about that in a minute. Okay. But on Order Up, Jeff Johns will be joining us. Jeff Johns, former DC, former, all these things. But now he is running Ghost Machine over at Image. He is going to show up to talk to us about Red Coat number 11, which is an introduction of a new character that's on FOC this week, and give you all the information you need to know to be able to order that at your shop. So tune in for that with Matthias Lewis and Jeff Johns on Friday. I think Jeff's coming on about 1:30. So we can get through some Marvel. We can get through some books. Matthias can get through some of the offerings, and then we'll bring Jeff on. And then after that, Nick's Original Art Show. Guys, one of the greatest creators ever, Peter David, has been going through some tremendous health struggles. There's been a GoFundMe and a couple of other fundraising efforts for David, or for Peter. And Nick on Friday on the Original Art Show is going to be offering part of the sales. I don't know if it's of certain pieces or if it's just a percentage of what they draw or what, to help Peter David on his ongoing fight for his health. You may know Peter David from, I don't know, Revolutionizing Hulk or Revolutionizing Captain Marvel or, any of the other great things he did. Those are my two favorites. But he could certainly use our help. And then 9 o'clock Friday night, kicking it with Nancy on Friday Night Live.
With Nancy.
Hang out with Nancy on Friday Night Live. Then Monday, Comic Collectibles is back. Best Coast Comics is back on Monday night. Tuesday, I will be back with Miss Jen and Shanice doing Minute to Skim It. Welcome to Wonderland will happen at 8 o'clock. And then Kicking It with Henri, who is at Kansas City at Planet Comic Con this weekend with Fabrice Sapolsky. If you're in Kansas City, go see them. He will be back on Tuesday. And then Wednesday, Comic Collectibles. And then Jay and I will be back talking about another topic that we have to figure out. So, you guys be safe, be healthy. Tune into all the other things. Click the like, hit subscribe, click the bell, all of those things. And we will see you next time.
Join the party. Head over to our link tree to find all the links for everywhere the experience is all the time.